What's up, guys? How's everyone doing on this fine Tuesday? I'm so tired. I literally stayed up all night last night doing my nails, but this is the final product. They have like glitter on the ends of them. I don't know if that was ASMR, but I hope you enjoyed. Okay, I was watching this video. I want to watch a little more of it because I'm really interested by this. I have too many little siblings that are going through the public school system, and I think I was lucky enough, not lucky enough, I don't even know what I was. I think my class, I graduated in 23, right? I think my class, we had COVID my freshman year. I think we were very fortunate that I was able to get at least like a little bit, like at least like half a year of like a normal high school experience, of like a normal like social environment in that sense, because the grade below me, holy shit, the difference between like 23, this is really biased to my school, by the way, and I went to a really small high school, so my graduating class only had like 250 kids in it, so the difference between like the 23 and the 22 was like not a lot, okay? Pretty much the same, pretty much chill. I loved all of my 22s, okay? The difference between the 23 and 24 was fucking ridiculous. It was insane. It was crazy. And I blame COVID, I blame isolation, I blame a lot of things, but one of the things that's been, I guess, like the worst of it is AI and the usage of AI in literally everything. I got it, my first bit of it when, oh my god, I'm talking way too much. Sorry, I'll play the video in a second. My first introduction to AI was using photo math and algebra, but in my defense, I was taking algebra in the 7th grade, so I I feel like I needed it.
Kids are in passenger mode because school is actually too easy for them. We talked to so many kids who said, look, I'm in class and the teacher is going over the math homework from yesterday and I got everyone right and I know the answers and it's 45 minutes of that. And I understand the kids who don't get it, they need the help, but I'm going to shop online. Or, I have kids who say, well, I got the homework home and I know how to do this stuff. So I just put in ChatGPT and it did my problem set for me. And then I, turn it in. So that's when it's too easy. Another version of why kids get into passenger mode is when it's too hard. School's too hard. You could have a neurodivergent kid. Kids don't feel, they belong. And so they're not tuning in. They've missed certain pieces of skill sets that they really need. Knowledge and education is cumulative in many ways. And they get kind of overwhelmed and they need particular special attention. So that's kind of what's going on in passenger mode.
Well, one reason I wanted to start in passenger mode is that when I think about ways AI probably is now, but can be very harmful, it's the connection with that mode. Because 100%. In passenger mode, what you want to do, and many of us have done passenger mode at work, and many of us have done it at school. In some ways, passenger mode was what I aspired to be at school. I just wasn't able to achieve it. But you're reading something you think is boring. You're reading something you don't want to be reading, but you want to get a good grade. So maybe at an earlier point, you would buy the Spark Notes.
Right.
But now you just have ChatGPT summarize it. And more than that, you can have ChatGPT write the essay. Kids are getting better at telling ChatGPT, no, you actually wrote too good of an essay. Like, dumb it down a little bit. That you basically hired your own like fill-in student who can help you coast. And that will help you get, if you're able to do it adroitly enough, decent grades. But also whatever meta skills, forget the knowledge, whatever.
I'm like a super huge fan of the reversing the way that the school is taught right now, where it's like you get taught the lesson in school, like you're taught like this is XYZ formula and this is XYZ theory or whatever, and then you go home and you do homework and you practice it and then that's it. I think it would make much more sense to have students on their own learn or like try and teach themselves concepts, have them write up something, or I don't know, come into class the next day with like questions, make every student ask a question, and then go over the lesson plan and then go over into the details of like the reverse, and then you do all of the practice work and then you do the homework, basically reversing lesson plans and homework.
For meta skills are being taught, how to read a book, how to write an essay, you're not actually learning them. And that's, I think, when people think educationally about AI, a bit of the fear and something that I believe everybody believes is happening now. So how do you think about that interaction?
I think you're 100% right. I've talked to kids all over the country. I've seen lots of incidents or cases of highly motivated, highly engaged kids who are using AI really well. They'll write the paper themselves. They'll go in and use AI for research and help them copy edit. They're doing the thinking, and they've lined up the evidence to create a thesis, and they presented it in logical order on their own. And that is the art of thinking. And that's why we assign 7th graders to write essays or 10th graders to write essays. It's not that they're going to create, incredible works of art. It's to train them how to think logically and how to think in steps. And that is a core component of critical thinking. So as long as kids are mastering that and the AI is helping, that's a good use. But a lot of kids are using it to do exactly like you said, shortcut the assignments. So an example, one kid I talked to said, this is a high school kid. For my essay, I break the prompt into 3 parts. I run it through 3 different generative AI models. I put it together. I run it through 3 anti-plagiarism checkers, and then I turn it in. Another kid said, yeah, I do it. I run it through ChatGPT, and then I run it through an AI humanizer, which goes in and puts...
At that point, like, I don't know, maybe I'm biased. I went to a pretty good high school. I was really lucky. I feel like most teachers don't grade super, like, it's not serious enough for you to be doing this in high school, is what I'm trying to say. It's not serious enough. Most teachers, if you show the effort, if you suck up enough, if you're able to like go in a little, maybe like once during your free period or like once early in school, early in the morning, just to show that you're willing to put in like a little bit of work, like most teachers are willing to work with you. it's not that serious.
Typos in and makes it,
These kids are getting good at something. I'm not sure that's what we want them getting good at, but they're getting good at something.
I will tell you, kids will find a way. No matter what, kids will find a way. We cannot outmaneuver them with technology. So the first response when Gen AI came in was ban it, block it, get anti-plagiarism checkers in, which are bad, by the way. Like I talked to one kid who showed me he had this essay, and the plagiarism checker flagged 40% of it, and he changed 2 words. And then it went away. He's all good. So, it is worrisome. So what we need to do is shift what we're doing in our teaching and learning experiences.
I have very personally complicated feelings on this, on the question of AI in education, just question of education generally. I hated school, hated it, did terribly in it, starting in middle school, going through high school, failed classes, just found the whole thing impenetrable. And not because I wasn't smart, not because I wasn't interested even in things related to it, just somehow the whole construct didn't work for me, and I couldn't make it work for me. It wasn't exactly that I was bored. I think today I probably could have muscled through it, but for whatever reason then I couldn't. But I was voracious outside of school. I spent 3 or 4 nights a week at Barnes and Nobles. I loved reading deeply into things that I was interested in. And I've related the story before.
I'm being narcissistic right now, but that was literally me. Ezra was literally me. I almost didn't graduate in like 4 different ways. Like there was one class that I had, I was DCAing because it was my first period. So I got like so many absences that they were going to deny me credit, and it was a grad requirement. Almost didn't make that one. There's another econ class, almost failed that one. Also a grad requirement. Meanwhile, I was also the president of debate club, president of the prom committee. I was the one that organized the whole prom. I was editor-in-chief of the newspaper. I was doing so much extracurricular shit, and I was doing it all so well. And then everything that I was fucking required to do by the school, I fuck all, literally did not care about it.
And one of the sort of reactions I get is, well, you should really then recognize the way school fails kids. And in a way I do. But it's just not obvious to me at all that school should be tuned for me. Like one thing that I recognize as somebody who studies bureaucracies is that if you just think of US public education, to say nothing of also private education, to say nothing of global education, it's educating a lot of kids. And its ability to tune itself to every kid is going to be pretty modest. And what kids need is different, but somehow you have to be orienting towards something that works for most of them, even if you're not sure how to make it work for all of them. I'm curious how you think about that.
I am not sure I agree. I agree with several things. One, you are not alone. There are many, many kids who currently today are going through the system and feel like you. 2, I agree with you that as sort of a bureaucratic system that is actually quite miraculous if you think about it. Like in every community across our country, kids as young as 3 to 18 at the same time of day are getting themselves to a place Monday through Friday for a certain amount of days in the year. I mean, that is a organization.
Oh my God. I don't know what I would even search to find the clip, but Sarah Longwell does a really good job of describing like a school education centric society where like schools are like community centers almost that like teach all of these different things and have all of these different like food shelters and community service and whatever, and all it's like so much more involved in the community and like so much more beneficial and like a turnout more of like a net positive to like the humanitarian social aspect rather than just like we're prepping the next generation of workers. Okay, that's enough of that. Elon Musk says he's pulling away from future political donations. Quote, I think I've done enough. You think you've done enough now? Motherfucker. Oh my God. This is like the captain of the Titanic after crashing into the iceberg. Yeah, I think I've done enough now. I'm gonna pass it on to you. I'm gonna pass it on to the next one. Double it and pass it to the next.
Well, if I see a reason to I think in terms of political spending, I'm going to do a lot less in the future.
And why is that?
I think I've done enough.
Is it because of blowback?
Well, if I see a reason to do political spending in the future, I will do it. I do not currently see a reason.
Okay. What about
I think in terms of
the top comment says it looks like an AI video. Okay. This says it's at the Qatar Economic Forum. I didn't watch the full video. I'm gonna watch it live with you guys. I probably should have found it before then. This is my bad. Sorry guys, it's difficult for me to tell
down the $56 billion pay package that was awarded to you? I think the value on the current value of stock options. Yeah.
not a judge, the activist who is cosplaying a judge in a Halloween costume.
Okay, that's your characterization. I think
Yes.
on the current value of stock options, I think the actual
Justice according to the law.
on the current value of stock options, I think the value of that pay package stands at about $100 billion. Are you saying you are relaxed about the value of your future pay package? Your decision to be committed to Tesla for the next 5 years, as long as you are still with us on this planet, is completely independent of pay?
No.
It's not independent. So pay is a relevant factor then to your commitment to Tesla.
A sufficient voting control such that I cannot be ousted by activist investors is what matters to me. And I've said this publicly many times. But let's not have this whole thing be a discussion of my alleged pay. It's not a money thing. It's a reasonable control thing over the future of the company, especially if we're building millions, potentially billions of humanoid robots. I can't be sitting there.
Did I miss something? Wait, hang on. There's no way he talks for 9 hours. Oh my god, he actually talks for 9 hours. This is the richest guy in the world and he couldn't get a better fucking camera for sitting down and talking for 9 hours? I thought this was gonna be like a quick, 1-2 Zoom call. Jesus Christ. Alright. This is like a fun, this is a fun roulette. Okay, let's find a fun clip.
Activist posing as a judge in Delaware happens to do will not affect the future compensation.
This is the judge who twice struck down the $56 billion pay package that was awarded to you. I think the value on the current value of stock options. Yeah.
Not a judge. The activist who is cosplaying a judge in a Halloween costume.
Okay, that's your characterization. I think on the current value of stock options, I think the actual
Justice according to the law.
on the current value of stock options, I think the value of that pay package stands at about $100 billion. Are you saying you are relaxed about the value of your future pay package? Your decision to be committed to Tesla for the next 5 years, as long as you are still with us on this planet, is completely independent of pay?
No.
It's not independent. So pay is a relevant factor then to your commitment to Tesla.
A sufficient voting control such that I cannot be ousted by activist investors is what matters to me. And I've said this publicly many times. But let's not have this whole thing be a discussion of my alleged pay. It's not a money thing. It's a reasonable control thing over the future of the company, especially if we're building millions, potentially billions of humanoid robots. I can't be sitting there and one day get tossed out by, for political reasons, by activists. That would be unacceptable. That's all that matters. Now let's move on.
Okay, well, just one question.
Let's move on.
Well, one question before we move on to other companies, which is that I wonder if some of what has happened to Tesla in the last few months, did you take it personally?
Yes.
And did it make you regret any of or think twice about your political endeavors? Because it is...
I did what needed to be done.
Wait, hang on. I'm sorry. Every motherfucker out there in the campaign was using the apologia. Oh, he's the richest man in the world. He's the richest man in the world. He wouldn't be doing this unless he genuinely had a love for the country. He's sacrificing his time. In the beginning of Doge, it was let him cook. Okay, he's doing such a service. He's he's so phenomenal and so great. it was so transparent the entire time that he was only funding Donald Trump to get more Tesla contracts, to get more Starlink contracts, to fund his own pocket, to have more children. I don't even know. He's fucking weird, okay? But this is so pathetic.
Companies, which is that I wonder if some of what has happened to Tesla in the last few months, did you take it personally?
Yes.
He took it so personally, what happened to Tesla, after alienating his entire base, every person that would be interested in a climate-friendly, probably.
And did it make you regret any of, or think twice about your political endeavors?
This should have been an immediate no. If he was such a good, so donating of his time and he was doing so much good for the country, this should have been an immediate no. I did my job, I did my duty to the country immediately, no hesitation.
Because it is.
I did what needed to be done. The violent antibody reaction, and I'm not someone who's ever committed violence, and yet massive violence was committed against my companies, massive violence was threatened against me. Who are these people? Why would they do that? How wrong can they be? They're on the wrong side of history, and that's.
Oh my god, he's such a big baby. He's such a big baby. Jesus Christ.
Beat adversaries like China. Everyone who sits or has sat on this dais, including you, cares deeply about America's standing in the world. I look forward to hearing your vision for the ongoing State Department reorganization and how it will protect our national security interests. Thank you again for coming today. Again, a warm welcome, Senator Shaheen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Rubio, welcome back. 4 months ago, you sat in that chair and you said that China is, quote, the most potent and
Gotta get better camera quality for these shits, okay?
dangerous near-peer adversary this nation has ever confronted. You called China an industrial competitor, an economic competitor, a geopolitical competitor, a scientific competitor. I believe you were right. And yet, this administration has eviscerated 6 decades of American foreign policy investments, undercutting our ability
Thank you so much, London Water, for the $10.
to compete with adversaries like China. And Beijing is not just sitting back. As Elon Musk took a chainsaw to USAID and you propose cutting 83% of foreign assistance programs, China has promised increasing its diplomatic budget by 8.4%. As we move to reduce our diplomatic workforce and discuss closing U.S. embassies, China has more diplomatic missions than any other nation on earth. And as the U.S. canceled PEPFAR, our most successful program fighting HIV/AIDS, China has been happy to replace our global health efforts across Africa and Asia. As this administration distracts from serious national security issues with threats against Panama and Greenland, Xi Jinping has welcomed Brazil's president and other Latin American leaders pledging more than $9 billion in investments. And as the U.S. has shuttered Voice of America and Radio Free Asia and crippled the State Department's ability to counter foreign propaganda, China pours billions into propaganda, spreading lies and eroding trust in the U.S. As this administration imposes tariffs on our closest allies, China is courting them in Europe, in Asia, and in our own hemisphere. Beijing is making the case that they are, and the term they are using is frightening, they are a more reliable partner than the United States. And it's not just our allies. Xi has deepened ties with Putin, shielding the Russian economy from sanctions. Because of that, and because President Trump has given away our leverage, Putin doesn't feel pressure to agree to a ceasefire in Ukraine. And for all the administration's talk, for all Elon Musk's promises, according to reports, Doge has not saved a dime.
Wait.
CBS News reports that the federal government has spent $200 billion more.
This is such a good read. Jesus Christ. Like, just bar for bar for bar for bar. You are fucking up so bad. Like, on so many different levels. How did you manage to fuck up
in its first 100 days than it did last year? And according to the Partnership for Public Service, Doge's cuts might cost American taxpayers $135 billion this year. This is in addition to the costs to American families and businesses stemming from the president's trade war. I recently met with a New Hampshire company that provides ball bearings to the aerospace industry. They do a lot of their business with defense. Their lead time for steel has gone from 20 weeks to 2.5 years because of the tariffs on steel. We can't support our defense industry with a 2.5 year lead time on steel. According to the Yale Budget Lab, consumers face an overall tariff rate of 17.8%, which is the highest since 1934. That's $2,800 per household each year. And these tariffs amount to the largest tax increase during peacetime in U.S. history. 4 months ago, Mr. Secretary, you said we were going to be safer, stronger, and more prosperous. But whether it's President Trump's deals with the Sinaloa cartel to let cartel members into the United States, or watching masked agents abduct a Tufts college student, I don't feel safer. With Canadians canceling summer trips to New Hampshire and hurting our tourism industry, I don't feel more prosperous. And after
People underestimate how much terrorism happens between Canada. Considers it terrorism. A lot of people don't even consider it terrorism. It's just like casual, just crossing the border. Especially in New York, it's like so common. People just casually go up to, I don't even know what the direct country is up from here. The direct city. Sorry, I want to say it's Montreal. It's definitely not Vancouver, right? I don't know Canadian geography, whatever. No one wants to come to the US right now. Like, not even just America. We have, what's that one streamer's name? Is his name Speed or something? His China trip literally made every child out there think that going to China, going to see China was like the coolest fucking thing ever. Like, no one wants to go to the US right now. No one outside of the US wants to visit us right now. We're scaring every country. We're scaring Romania. We're scaring Romania. And Australia. Australia doesn't even have free speech. Do you know how difficult it is?
traveling to Ukraine and visiting the graves of people who were massacred on the orders of a Russian president this administration has bent over backwards to please, I don't feel more secure. To your credit, Mr. Secretary, your trip and the statement from President Trump that he will be lifting sanctions on Syria was welcome news. And you've worked to restart some programs and grant waivers to others. But contrary to what we've heard, life-saving health and humanitarian...
Hang on, wait. It's actually crazy. Australia has such strict laws on what you're allowed to say on political speech. The fact that they were still able to vote out the Trumpian candidate without anyone being able to verbally counteract the false narratives and debunk the information in real time is just a testament to fucking American stupidity. Why are we so retarded?
Aid is still not flowing in any meaningful way. My staff was just in Africa. We have photos of the empty shelves and closed down clinics. We were promised a golden age for America, but instead our disease surveillance programs are down, our counterterrorism programs are in chaos, the ceasefire in Gaza has ended and fighting has begun again, and we have unilaterally disarmed against some of our most dangerous adversaries. You know, one of the things that I'll never forget in the past 4 months is my trip to Ukraine, where we stopped in Poland, which has been...
Yeah, and we lost our perfect credit rating for the first time since literally 1919 or something like that.
One of the most pro-American countries in the world. But because of the cuts and the stop work orders, we met with one civil society leader who was working with Ukrainian refugees. And he said to me, to the Codel, we always looked up to Americans. You are our trusted ally. My trust in America is broken. They were told to remove all the American flags with the halt on assistance to foreign assistance. Removing all the American flags is a sad commentary on the foreign assistance legacy for this administration. American flags coming down around the world. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you, Senator Shaheen. Secretary Rubio, there appears to be a modest disagreement in view of the condition today. It's your turn. Close the gap for us, please.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here on behalf of the National Archives, and in addition to...
Yeah, we don't have time for you to listen.
Okay, well, we'll focus on state today. I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Oh my God. Wow, he's a jokester. He's a jokester, that one.
To you today. You know, when I came here 4 months ago, I told you that what I want...
You know what? That's actually fucked, because the National Archivist, I'm pretty sure, is the one that's a check on the State Department. They're the one that deals with all of the record keeping and the checking over of everything, so...
It was a State Department that was at the heart and soul of American foreign policy, that it was the single biggest driver both of action but also of ideas, and we're well on our way to achieving that. And the way I'll talk about some of the individual things we've accomplished during that time, but first let me explain sort of some of the processes by which we seek to arrive at it. The first is a reorganization of the way the State Department functions, and we have sort of previewed that with the committee and many of the individual members. Obviously we'll have to come, we've taken input and are taking input now through the notice process, and then we'll come back to you with a formal congressional notification once, but we are taking a lot of the input, both provided by individual members and your staff, but also from inside the building. But if I could simplify the goal is this, and that is...
Yeah, all right, first... Carry on.
The goal is to drive power and action in our agency to the regional bureaus and to our embassies on everything we do. We want our foreign policy to be holistic. So, for example, we recognize that the set of factors, both in diplomacy and foreign aid in Guatemala or in Trinidad or in Jamaica, are going to look different than they may somewhere in Africa, somewhere in the Indo-Pacific region. And we want those decisions and the influence over those decisions to be made, to be driven to the regional bureaus. And so what we've done is we've taken a lot of the functional bureaus and functional processes and moved them under the purview of the regional bureaus and the career individuals that serve there, and ultimately down to the embassy. One of our first tests, Senator Shaheen, is going to be in Syria. We don't have an embassy in Syria. It's operating out of Turkey. But we need to help them. We want to help that government succeed, because the alternative is full-scale civil war and chaos, which would, of course, destabilize the entire region. And we are going to allow our people on the ground, both our embassy personnel at the Damascus embassy located in Turkey, and for the short period of time, at least, or in the interim, our ambassador in Turkey, to work with local officials.
I thought Tulsi Gabbard said that the new regime? I don't even know what they're called. Whatever. The new leadership in Syria was like crucifying Christians. Why do we want to work with them?
Officials there to make determinations about what kind of aid they need. Is it humanitarian? Is it improving law enforcement or governance functions? We think it's going to be the first test of this new model, but I strongly believe that our decisions and the power to drive decisions and the decisions and the inputs that we're taking have to be driven in many cases from the bottom up, not from the top down, and focused on the fact that there is unique sets of factors in individual parts of the world that require different priorities and attention. And ultimately, foreign policy, mature foreign policy, requires a balancing of interests. That's just a fact. Okay, our human rights agenda is going to look different in certain parts of the world than it will in others. That doesn't mean that we as a people have abandoned it. That means that in a world where you need to conduct real foreign policy in a mature and structured way, there are ways you're going to have to balance all these. Where you need to conduct real foreign policy in a mature and structured way,
Actually, Senator Rubio, we're making progress. There's protesting in English now.
Oh, remember that? Yeah.
Remember last time.
So we have to understand, and that's why we think it's so important that our regional bureaus be at the core and at the...
That's disgusting. He felt the need to point out, not even point out, applaud the fact that we're making progress. That protest was in English. So funny.
About to lose.
The heart of everything we do, and so we feel good about that part of it. By the same token, I think critical to this are some of the reforms we're trying to make to foreign aid. And I said when I appeared before this committee, everything we do has to make us stronger, safer, or more prosperous. So we've undertaken a review of our foreign aid. And the reality is that there are many of these programs, some are good programs. Some make all the sense in the world, and we wanted to pursue those programs. Some of these programs make all the sense in the world, but frankly, on the priority scale, perhaps other programs are more important. Others, frankly, made no sense at all. We can talk about some of those programs today. We funded things around the world that made absolutely no sense. I will say this, even with the reforms we put in place and what we're suggesting as changes to our foreign aid, we still will provide more foreign aid, more humanitarian support than the next 10 countries combined, than the entire OECD, and far more than China.
We're the most prosperous country in the world. No shit. What is... Do you want us to be... Do you expect other countries to be giving at the same level as us? Or do you not think that we should be giving anything at all? That's a moral argument. You can argue that if you want to. Don't try and equate it.
And China doesn't do humanitarian aid. China does predatory lending. That's what Belt and Road Initiative is. That's what all of their aid. They have zero record of doing humanitarian aid in the world. And frankly, they don't know how to do it. They have no interest in doing it. What they're very good at is going into some country, making you a loan, and then holding that debt over your head. And that's what they continue doing. By the way, you have to hire a Chinese company to do it. So I don't agree with this assessment that there's no evidence whatsoever that China has either the capacity or the will to replace the U.S. in humanitarian assistance, in food deliveries, or in developmental assistance for that matter. We provide development assistance. They provide debt traps. And that's a point over and over again around the world that we've made, and we found receptive audiences to it. Now look, anytime you undertake reforms of this magnitude that needed to be made, you're going to have hiccups, and you're also going to have controversy. But these reforms had to happen. At USAID, 12 cents of every dollar was reaching the recipient. That means that in order for us to get aid to somebody, we had to spend all this other money supporting this foreign aid industrial complex. We're going to find more efficient ways to deliver aid to people directly, and it's going to be directed by our regional bureaus, and it's going to sponsor programs that make a difference, and it's going to be part of a holistic approach to our foreign policy. And
I thought that USAID was a democratic deep state conspiracy and a money laundering front that was being used to fund condoms going to Gaza. What do you mean it was humanitarian? What do you mean is a humanitarian help that needs to be saved and needs to be reformed?
I look forward to engaging with this committee and the appropriators as well and ensuring that we get to the right place on that. My last point I would make, this is something I'm very proud of. I believe, and I'm not besmirching anyone else, but I believe that the approach we have taken at the State Department, and frankly at USAID, but at State Department, to move forward reforms that involve intake from all of our partners, that required input from people within the building. Many of the reforms we've made were driven by people inside the building, many of whom have worked there for 20 or 30 years. And now we are engaged with Congress, both in the House and Senate, in a comment period where we're taking many of your comments and are making changes to our organizational proposals that we look forward to bringing back to you with an official congressional notification. And even after that, there'll be an opportunity to move forward. But the State Department had to change. I'm telling you, it was no longer at the center of American foreign policy. It had often been replaced by the National Security Council or by some other agency of government, when in fact we have these highly talented people, who many of whom have served
Who's the head of the National Security Council now, Marco?
in multiple posts around the world and have a holistic view of how foreign policy needs to be conducted, that were being edged out. Because you know what? When I get a decision memo early on at the State Department, they would hand me these memos, there were 40 boxes on this piece of paper. That means 40 people had to check off, yes, okay, before it even got to me. That's ridiculous. That takes too long. That's why people said don't use State Department. They take too long and it's too cumbersome. And any one of those little boxes didn't get checked, the memo didn't move up the chain. That can't continue. We can't move at that pace in this world. Events happen quickly. And we have to be able to move at the pace of relevance. And so I hope to work with you in a productive way to make that possible. You're not going to like all the changes, but I want you to know what the intent of the changes are. It is not to dismantle American foreign policy, and it is not to withdraw us from the world. Because I just hit 18 countries in 18 weeks. That doesn't sound like much of a withdrawal. And I see some of these foreign ministers, including individuals from Ukraine, more than I've seen my own children. And I talk to them at least 3 times a week. We are engaged in the world, but we're going to be engaged in a world that makes sense and that's smart. And that isn't about saving money. It is about ensuring that we are delivering to our people what they deserve, a foreign policy that makes America stronger, safer, and more prosperous. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Rubio. We're going to do a round of questions. We'll go 7 minutes since we have a secretary here. And I'm going to start.
No.
Terry, in response to an earlier question, you sort of posed a question back. What is one thing that has happened during the Trump administration that has strengthened Vladimir Putin's hand in Ukraine, mentioning that the sanctions were still in place? I just would like to introduce for the record an article dated February 28 from NBC News titled "State Department Terminates," about the, quote, persecution of
It's a fundamental problem for multiple countries, for example, in Europe. That it's not just the energy they need now, it's the energy they're going to need in the years to come. If you do an audit of where they're going to wind up needing, they don't have any way to generate that now unless they
served together in Congress for 15 years. We didn't always agree, but I believe we shared some common values. A belief in defending democracy and human rights abroad and honoring the Constitution at home. That's why I voted to confirm you. I believed you would stand up for those principles. You haven't. You've done the opposite. And you used to speak with conviction about the importance of foreign aid as a tool to advance American values and interests. Then you stood by while Elon Musk took a chainsaw to USAID and other assistance programs. That has left a staggering toll. Broken trust with countries, openings for China and other adversaries, and countless preventable deaths of children and others. Take Sudan, for example. The freezing of U.S. humanitarian assistance forced the closure of nearly 80% of the emergency food kitchens there. 2 million famine-affected people were left without access to food. People died because of those actions. Mothers, fathers, and children. Tons of emergency food that could have saved their lives was left rotting in warehouses because you and Elon Musk refused to let USAID do its job. Sudan is a country where, by the administration's own determination, a genocide is unfolding in Darfur. But here's where it goes from cruel to despicable. While cutting off food aid to Sudanese families living through an actual genocide, you're fast-tracking white South Africans for refugee status under a manufactured claim that they are the victims of genocide.
Hang on. Not only that,
you tried to block,
but we also are deporting people to South Sudan. Like, what? The Trump administration deported at least 2 migrants in U.S. custody to South Sudan on Tuesday morning in violation of a court order, according to an emergency motion filed by their lawyers. The 2 men, identified only by initials NM and TTP, are nationals of Myanmar and Vietnam, who, their lawyers say, were covered by an earlier court order precluding them from being deported to third-party countries. The lawyers also argue that the men's deportation to South Sudan, a country that is now returning to full-blown and catastrophic civil war, could violate international laws against torture. As part of its mass deportation efforts, the administration has been looking for third-party countries to accept the migrants in the U.S. whose countries have been resistant to taking them back. District Judge Brian Murphy previously blocked immigration officials from removing migrants to third-party countries. However, lawyers for migrants submitted emails that were sent from DHS and detention offers on May 19th and 20th, informing them of their clients' pending deportation to South Sudan, and included copies of removal signed by U.S. officials. The State Department advises U.S. citizens to avoid traveling to South Sudan because of crime, kidnapping, and armed conflict, and in March evacuated most US government employees from the country amid a worsening conflict there. This is insane. Like, we're cutting off aid to help the Sudanese during an actual genocide. We're accepting white South Africans under the guise of a genocide. We are building... No, sorry. What are we even doing in Gaza right now? Like, where are we still doing the casino and, like, the vacation time? Like, what's the current status of that? I hate ARC sometimes. Jesus Christ. Oh! Israel wants to annex the West Bank. Is that the latest? Like, what? Now we're deporting people to South Sudan. Great. Phenomenal.
Blocked the admission of individuals who had already been approved to come here as refugees while making bogus claims to justify granting such status to Afrikaners. You've made a mockery of our country's refugee process, turning it into a system of global apartheid where political ideology and race, more than truth or need, matter. And while you've turned away from a genocide in Sudan and invented one in South Africa, you teamed up with President Trump to throw the Ukrainian people under the bus and have been played like a fiddle by Vladimir Putin. Of course, Donald Trump not only said he would end the war in Ukraine on day one, he also said he would end the war in Gaza on day one. And yet last week, you were all running around to Gulf states, giving away very sensitive American AI and chips technology, but doing nothing to end the war in Gaza and get the remaining hostages returned. You know that for 78...
I don't know enough about AI, but that's scary. Whatever deal they made in Saudi Arabia is scary. The fact that Donald Trump was okay with accepting a plane from Qatar, like, when there could be a bug or any explosive device or any little matter of anything hidden in any crevice of that plane. Actually, you know what? Let me not warn him.
Days, the Netanyahu government did not allow a scrap of food to enter Gaza to reach over 2 million civilians. 57 children have died from malnutrition so far, and more than 14,000 children are in imminent danger of dying of starvation. As Cindy McCain said last week, and I quote, "Families in Gaza are starving while the food they need is sitting at the border." That is a gross violation of both U.S. and international law. What did you do? Nothing. Not once did you publicly call upon the Netanyahu government to end the blockade. Fortunately, other countries spoke out, and now we see a tiny trickle going in. Where have you focused your energy instead, Mr. Secretary? Well, your first trip as Secretary of State was to El Salvador, not to promote democracy, but to cozy up to President Bukele, who calls himself the world's coolest dictator. The result was a cash for collusion deal to deprive people living in America of their constitutional rights to due process. The Supreme Court, in a 9-0 decision, instructed you to facilitate the return to the United States of Abrego Garcia, who the administration admitted was wrongfully deported to El Salvador. Your response? You've openly flouted judicial orders. When asked whether you have been in touch with El Salvador to return Abrego Garcia, you boasted, quote, "I would never tell you that. And you know who else I would never tell? A judge." Clearly, you don't care about the Fifth Amendment right to due process, and you don't care about the First Amendment either, since you've been very busy snatching students off of college campuses for exercising their right to free speech. You dredged up a relic from the McCarthy era to claim that student protesters pose a threat to the foreign policy of the United States. Give me a break, Mr. Secretary. You know as well as I do this isn't about...
There's a fiery debate about Hassan between Pisco.
Oh wait. Retarded.
National security. It's about punishing free speech. And you know that in America, the government doesn't get to use its power to punish speech it doesn't like. Yet in March, you boasted about revoking student visas, saying, and I'm quoting, "We do it every day. Every time I find one of these lunatics, I take away their visa," unquote. Let's look at one of those lunatics, Mr. Secretary, Ms. Ozturk. Her crime was co-authoring an op-ed in her college paper critical of Tufts University's response to the war in Gaza. Your own department found 0 links to terrorism, no anti-Semitic statements, but you still yanked her visa and shipped her off to detention in Louisiana. And the list goes on and on. The federal judge in the case of Mohsen Madawi, who was the Columbia student who was ambushed by federal agents at his citizenship appointment, said, and I quote, this is the judge, Legal residents not charged with crimes or misconduct are being arrested and threatened with deportation for stating their views on the political issues of the day. Our nation has seen times like this before, especially during the Red Scare and Palmer raids. Like the McCarthy-era witch hunts of the 1950s, your campaign of fear and repression is eating away at foundational values of our democracy. Back then, it took one voice, Attorney Joseph Welch, to cut through the hysteria with the simple question that marked the beginning of the end of that shameful era. He asked Senator McCarthy, have you no sense of decency? And I would ask you the same, Secretary Rubio. You have shown through your words and your actions what the answer is. And I have to tell you directly and personally that I regret voting for you for Secretary of State. I yield back.
May I respond?
You may sit.
Well, first of all, your regret for voting for me confirms I'm doing a good job, based on what I know.
Well, that's just a
record
flippant
of what you
statement,
mean.
Mr. Secretary.
Can I respond, Mr. Chairman?
You may.
I didn't ask
Senator,
the
please
question.
let the Secretary
I'd be happy to, but then
Oh my god, I hate when Republicans pull that shit. When they're like, oh, well, actually, the very fact that this is getting taken down, or the very fact that you are mad at me, or the very fact that I am pissing off XYZ means that I'm doing something right, is like the most brain dead. Like, okay, what if I hit you and kicked you in the balls and poked your eyes out? And then, and then I turned around and I was like, fuck, I don't even, damn, I need to get better at these analogies. I'm sorry.
I can respond to his...
Your time's up, Senator, and
That's it. That's all I did. What if that's all I did?
willfully used, I might add.
Well-
Your remarks do not represent the view of this committee.
Well, Mr.
Secretary,
Chairman-
please.
Well, I can't respond to everything he said because much of these are untrue, but I'll go through a few. First of all, I'm actually very proud of the work we've done with USAID, for example. I don't regret cutting $10 million for male circumcisions in Mozambique. I don't know how that makes us stronger and more prosperous as a nation. I don't regret psychosocial support services.
I raised
with
Sudan,
USAID.
Mr. Secretary.
Can I respond?
Senator, I'd ask you to suspend. You had 7 straight minutes.
I chose
really
to
not-
use my time that way, Mr. Chairman. That's my right to
Please
use my time
suspend,
that way.
Secretary Rubio.
Well, I can go on. I mean, there's other things here. We spent $227,000 for Big Cat's YouTube channel from USAID. We spent $14 million for social cohesion in Mali, whatever the hell that means. So I can go on and on. I got the list here, and there's more. I didn't even bring the whole list. In the case of El Salvador,
If you want to sit here and read out tweets and fucking receipts that are easily locatable on like the fed.gov, as if no one in the room has ever been able to look that up ever before, like that is, oh my god, it's so pathetic. It's so clearly like for the audience, it's not for anyone in the room, which is like sad. Senate hearings should be, I don't think that the average person should be able to sit through a Senate hearing and understand what's going on. Like, I think that the average person should want to kill themselves if they're ever put through a Senate hearing. Like, civics is hard. It's boring. It's annoying. I had to go to school board meetings in school. They're fucking irritating and really tedious and really annoying. And half of the time, they just sat there and they used a bunch of jargon that I literally didn't know anything about.
absolutely. Absolutely. We deported gang members, including the one you had a margarita with. And that guy is a human trafficker, and that guy is a gangbanger, and the evidence is going to be clear. In the days to come,
Mr.
you're going to
Chairman,
see who you went to
look,
jail.
I'm sorry,
please,
Mr. Chairman.
Secretary Rubio has the floor.
Mr. Chairman, he can't make unsubstantiated comments
Senator,
like that.
Secretary Rubio has the floor. You had
Secretary
your time.
Rubio should take that testimony to the federal court of the United States because he hasn't done it under oath.
Here's another point, okay? There is a division in our government between the federal branch and the judicial branch. No judge in the judicial branch cannot tell me or the president how to conduct foreign policy. No judge can tell me how I have to outreach to a foreign partner or what I need to say to them. And if I do reach to that foreign partner and talk to them, I have under no obligation to share that with the judiciary branch. Just like a judge cannot order me to negotiate with a foreign minister of Russia, they cannot order me to negotiate with a foreign minister or the president of El Salvador. And if I did negotiate with them, which we have responded to them, and we've told them we've had communications with the president of El Salvador, I am under no obligation under our division of powers in this country and to share with the judicial branch how I conduct the diplomacy of the United States. It would actually be counterproductive. If I started sharing with courts, or frankly, with the media, my conversations with foreign leaders and all of their details, no foreign leader would talk to me again. And we would...
Your president does that literally on the fucking daily. Donald Trump is constantly tweeting about, or constantly truthing, or whatever the fuck you want to call it. Whenever he has a call with XYZ leader, always saying whatever XYZ call was, and it's always a fucking lie. Like, and this is such a pathetic straw man. Like, oh, okay. If like you want me to be transparent, you want me to tell you how I plan to get these people back. Like, you want me to tell you my foreign policy plan to the public. You want me to reveal our national secrets. It's obviously not that big of a deal in this administration if you have the fucking Secretary of Defense making a group chat with his brother-in-law and his wife. Like,
break trust with them. So I have complied with every court order. What I won't comply with is an order to disclose what I'm saying and what we're talking about with a foreign leader, because then they won't talk to me. Diplomacy doesn't work that way. About the student visas, let me say this. I don't deport anybody, and I don't snatch anybody. The State Department does not have officers in the street snatching everybody. What I do is revoke visas, and it's very simple. A visa is not a right. It is a privilege. People apply for student visas to come into the United States and study. And if you tell me that you're coming to the United States to lead campus crusades, to take over libraries, and try to burn down buildings, and acts of violence, we're not going to give you a visa.
Is that what Ms. Ostorp did?
We're not going to give you a visa.
Is that what she did? Come on, Mr. Secretary.
And every single one of these cases, the factors are different. The bottom line is, if you're coming here to stir up trouble on our campuses, we will deny you a visa. And if you have a visa, we will revoke it. And we're going to do more. There are more coming. We're going to continue to revoke the visas of people who are here as guests and are disrupting our higher education facilities. People are paying money. These kids pay money to go to school, and they have to walk through a bunch of lunatics who are here on student visas.
Like, not a single one of the students that got their visas revoked was given notice. It literally doesn't do shit. Like, you're just taking away they weren't given notice. They weren't given any type of, like, justification or any type of reasoning or any, I don't know, due process as to why they were getting their legal status in the United States taken away from them. Like, proving that they were a nuisance or proving that they were harmful to the higher education school or whatever. Like, that, such a, oh my God.
Disrupting the foreign policy of the United States.
I want to do more. I hope we can find more of these people.
Mr.
In fact, the other day, some guys led a riot. I forgot what university it was. And I asked, please, can you find the arrest records of all the people that were arrested at that riot at that campus? Because if any of them have a visa, we're going to revoke.
I feel so much safer when you lock up people like Ms. Ostorp, Mr. Secretary.
We've had enough time on the subject. Thank you very much. And
meanwhile, we are literally extraditing cartel members into the country. Like, you are focusing on fucking little kids in high school. Hey, yo, what the fuck? You're focusing on taking away student visas from college kids. It's just such a, oh my God. The priority is so out of whack.
we're going to move to Senator Lee.
Mr. Secretary, it's very good to have you back here. I want to say it's good to see the fauna in its natural habitat, but it's more like its former habitat, because your current one is also where you naturally belong. And I, for one, I know a majority of us feel the same way, have every confidence in your ability to serve us, and are very grateful for your service. One of the many things that I've always liked about you and I always agree with you on is your clear-eyed vision for the Western Hemisphere. You seem to share the understanding many of us have, which is that we've been blessed as a country throughout our 250-year existence by the fact that we're protected by a big ocean to our left, another big ocean to our right, and friendly neighbors to our north and south. Those natural barriers are good for us and gave rise to the Monroe Doctrine and things like that. And I appreciate the fact that we now have a Secretary of State who understands and appreciates the importance of the Western Hemisphere. So I want to ask you where the Western Hemisphere fits relative to other regions of the globe with the current administration. Now, as I understand it, the America First Opportunity Fund is intended to support, quote, America's most enduring and critical partners. As you, as Secretary of State, work to realign State Department priorities and funding programs with our national interests, will the countries in our immediate periphery, those in our hemisphere, our neighbors, be counted among our most critical partners?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, by the way, the
absolute fucking cock.
Well, habeas corpus is a constitutional right that the president has.
So, Secretary Noem, what is habeas corpus?
Well, habeas corpus is a constitutional right that the president has to be able to remove people from this country and suspend their right to.
Let me stop you, ma'am.
Suspend their
habeas
right
corpus. Excuse me. That's incorrect.
President
habeas
Lincoln
corpus.
Used it.
Excuse me. Habeas corpus is the legal principle that requires that the government provide a public reason for detaining and imprisoning people.
I'm not a feminist. I'm not. This woman put feminism back like 60 years. Okay? Jesus Christ. Oh my fucking God.
If not for that protection, the government could simply arrest people, including American citizens, and hold them indefinitely for no reason. Habeas corpus is the foundational right that separates free societies like America from police states like North Korea. As a senator from the Live Free or Die state, this matters a lot to me and my constituents and to all Americans. So, Secretary Noem, do you support the core protection that habeas corpus provides, that the government must provide a public reason in order to detain and imprison someone?
Yeah, I support habeas corpus. I also recognize that the President of the United States.
Oh my gosh. Now that you've explained yeah, like okay, now repeat it back to me. What did I say? What definition? Say it in your own words. Tell me what you learned from what I said, Christy. Like what did you garner?
States has the authority under the Constitution to decide if it should be suspended or not.
It has never
Let us be clear, though,
it
that
has
this
never
president...
been done. It has never been done without approval of Congress. Even Abraham Lincoln got retroactive approval from Congress.
It has grown into an unwieldy bureaucracy.
My constituents and to all Americans, and tries to suspend habeas corpus administration will, because it's obviously critical that some of the people, for instance, who've been deported by mistake, who didn't get due process, be returned in compliance with court orders. So now, let's move on to another issue. International criminal organizations target Americans with sophisticated cyber crime, including elaborate scams that robbed Americans of billions of dollars, with seniors in the United States losing $5 billion to scammers in 2024 alone. As artificial intelligence improves, so does the ability of criminals to deceive and defraud Americans. With this new technology, criminals can impersonate loved ones, develop advanced malware, or make more convincing phishing messages. How is DHS working to identify trends in illegal activity and ensure that new AI systems have safeguards in place to prevent their use in criminal activity?
Yes, we are working extensively through CISA, but in all of our agencies to make sure that we're going after these criminal nefarious actors. I would say partnering with private industry is critically important so that we have the insight that we need to really understand the tactics that they use and the advancements in software, the AI ability that they have to adjust.
This is why I can't have nice things. Leave me alone. Oh, I'm sorry.
And to supersede some of our systems is incredible. And so investing in those systems is important, but also having the knowledge and bringing everybody to the table and breaking down the silos between our agencies and our intelligence agencies is important, so we all have the information that we need to get.
Well, and that gets me to one final point and question here, because Senator Peters began to ask about it. There's been recent reporting that indicates that the Chinese government installed remote access to Chinese-made power inverters in the U.S., raising concerns that the Chinese government could try to disable parts of our power grid. And you made a comment following up on Senator Peters' question about the importance of not only working with private industry on this issue, as you would also want to work on AI, but also on working with state and local governments on cybersecurity. And can you just talk to me a little bit about how DHS is partnering with state and local governments?
Well, that's one of the core critical missions of CISA, is to help those state and local governments harden their systems. We're extremely vulnerable by our weakest link. And so when you have a small state that doesn't have the resources it needs to invest in these security operations, then they're vulnerable to attacks and hacking attempts, and they can access our systems. If they have a contract or a system that interfaces with the federal system, it makes us vulnerable as well. So we are responsible for 10 of the 16 critical infrastructures under the Department of Homeland Security, and making sure that China can't come in and shut down our electrical grid, our water systems, things that people rely on every day for their day-to-day lives is very important. So that's why we need these kind of partnerships, is to make sure that we're secure all the way down to our smallest actor that participates.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate working more with you on that. Thank you.
Senator Lightford.
Secretary, good to see you again. Thanks for your leadership and the work that you've already done, and there's a lot more still to do, but y'all had a pretty remarkable start in the process. And I'm very grateful. For 4 years, every single hearing we ever had with any DHS official was dominated by border, close it, and excuses why they couldn't. It's kind of fun for me, actually, to be able to sit here and hear conversation about FEMA, about Coast Guard, about all the other aspects of DHS that's out there, Secret Service, when all we had time to talk about was about border in the previous time. I had my team pull together just the March numbers for the last 4 years of border crossings. And what happened? If we go back to March of 2022, 222,000, 2023, 193,000, 2024, 189,000, and then this last March, 11,000. And to be able to see the dramatic difference that's happened in a very short period of time in the enforcement that's actually happened, it's given a deep breath to the nation. It's also given an opportunity for the folks at the border to catch up. I was in San Diego a couple of weeks ago, meeting with the Border Patrol folks in CBP and Coast Guard. They're in San Diego and their enforcement around the Tijuana border, and to be able to see what's happening, and the morale there is dramatically different, dramatically different from the times that I've been there in the past. You had mentioned Coast Guard as well, and I want to be able to just highlight that, and I've got a whole bunch of other questions I want to go through, but just want to say thank you to you and your team for the work that's been done. Coast Guard folks are getting an additional pressure point there. Folks are getting on jet skis and pango boats and coming around. Coast Guard's not only saving lives, as we've seen in the past couple of weeks, even about some of these pango boats that are coming in that are capsizing out there. Coast Guard's rescuing and actually removing folks at the same time in the process. They've got to have additional cameras. They need different radar systems. They need additional people that are there. I saw some of the DOD personnel that's working alongside Coast Guard folks to be able to assist them from other agencies of DOD. They need additional folks there. So one of the questions I want to ask you was about Coast Guard and the plan. You mentioned that about additional assets, but there are radars, cameras, other things, including personnel, that they're going to need help on.
Yeah, I would say that Coast Guard, its mission set is pretty expansive, and most of the time they're not only just doing search and rescue. They're out there doing interdiction on the water. They're also participating with the Navy in securing projects and missions worldwide, and their cutters move faster and help work securing our warships and our aircraft carriers, and it's incredibly important the work that they do. So we're grateful for that, but we also...
Oh my god. I wish that I had the energy to sit through these. I really do. I used to. Oh, is he talking about the tornadoes? Oh my god. Homeland Security is in charge of FEMA, and FEMA is completely fucked from the Trump administration. And FEMA is the one that deals with the natural disaster.
State and to your state. It will be on record. That's what.
The border was just an intractable problem. The last administration came and sat where you're sitting for 4 years and told us it couldn't be done. It couldn't be done. The border was just an intractable problem. It would take years to do it. You did it in the space of really 30 days. And now the United States southern border is secure. So thank you for your tremendous work on that. I want to begin, however, with the situation in St. Louis, which I'm sure you're aware of. On Friday afternoon and evening, major storms ripped through the St. Louis area, as well as southeast Missouri. I'm going to put a picture up over my shoulder here. An F3 tornado cut right through North St. Louis. This is what you're seeing here is pretty typical, I'm sad to say, of the damage. We lost 5 people in St. Louis. We lost another 2 in Scott County, which is down in southeast Missouri. There to the south, a couple of hours south of the city. I spent much of the day yesterday just walking these neighborhoods and talking to residents, and this that you're seeing over my shoulder is what these neighborhoods all look like. These are areas that the families have lived here. In some cases, I talked to one gentleman, and he said that his family had been there since his great-grandmother came to that neighborhood in 1919. So it's that kind of a community, and they are totally devastated. Yesterday afternoon, my governor requested an emergency disaster declaration to expedite FEMA funds to help the state just clean up. I mean, just clean up the kind of rubble now that you're seeing behind me. You've been a governor until very recently. You know how important this is. Can we get your help to expedite the consideration of that request? Again, it was just made yesterday. We need... it as quickly as possible. Will you help us expedite that?
Yeah, absolutely. I've spoken with your governor and did that day that this devastation happened. And so we've promised and pledged to get that expedited as soon as possible for him so he can have the resources that he needs to respond to his people. And that's one of the failures that FEMA's had in the past, is that people that incur this kind of damage and lose everything, then they sit there for months, sometimes years, and never get the promised critical response that they think or that they believe they should be getting from the federal government. And that's why President Trump believes that this agency needs to be dramatically reformed.
I'm glad to hear you.
There are what's it called? Claims? There are claims that still haven't been paid out from Hurricane Helene, which apparently was a whole government conspiracy caused by the Democrats, according to Marjorie Taylor Greene. The Democrats suspiciously caused it in a swing state to alter the votes, okay? Oh my god. This guy has to beg. Christy, please, the people that voted for you, the people that voted for our Mango Mussolini, they're suffering. Please help us.
You say that, and you're exactly right. We've had a situation in Missouri in years past where we've had individuals who have qualified for FEMA aid, including individual assistance. In some cases, they've been awarded the assistance, and then FEMA has come in and clawed it back, or never paid it out, or never sent teams to help. So to have your commitment to expedite this is tremendous. That will be welcome news to the residents of St. Louis. We also have, the state has pending 3 requests for major disaster declarations from earlier storms. We've lost over a dozen people. Actually, if you count the folks we lost just on Friday, we've lost almost 20 people now in major storms just in the last 2 months in Missouri. It's been a terrible spring for us. Here again, can I ask for your help? Will you commit to helping for those 3 major disaster declaration requests that are pending? Will you help expedite those, Secretary Noem, and get those in front of the President, get those approved? We are desperate for the assistance in Missouri.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Sure the application gets to the White House as soon as possible.
Fantastic, thank you. And can I also have your commitment that if and when the President approves a major disaster declaration for this storm that just happened on Friday in St. Louis, will you expedite as much as possible FEMA individual assistance for those who qualify for it in the St. Louis area?
Yes.
And I want to tell you,
This is the same administration, okay? FEMA ends wasteful, politicized grant program, returning agency to core mission of helping Americans recovering from natural disasters. FEMA is building the Resilient Infrastructure and Communities program, canceling all BRIC applications from fiscal years 20 to 2023. If grant funds have not been distributed to the states, tribes, territories, and local communities, funds will immediately be returned either to Disaster Relief Fund or the U.S. Treasury. The BRIC program was yet another example of wasteful and ineffective FEMA program. It was more concerned with political agendas than helping Americans affected by natural disasters. Under Secretary Noem's leadership, we are committed to ensuring Americans in crisis can get the help and resources they need. Approximately $882 million of funding will be returned to the U.S. Treasury, 133 more to date. FEMA estimates more than $3.6 billion will remain in the disaster relief funds to assist with disaster response and recovery for communities and survivors. Wait, I think this is this is hyping it up. This is saying that there's gonna be a good amount. I don't want to read Democrats.com. Depew. The rural communities were awarded grants from FEMA to fix longstanding infrastructure problems, and they expected to be delivered last year. But last month, the Trump administration canceled their grants and hundreds of others, including ones that had already been promised but not paid out. Since 2020, FEMA has awarded $4.6 billion to communities across the U.S. through programs known as BRIC. Wait, so when you put that into... Oh my gosh! Okay, hang on. So FEMA estimates more than $3.6 billion. Okay, when you put that into perspective for how much money they actually awarded out, that's like, they cut like 25% of it. Those disasters are becoming costlier, with the country experiencing an increasing number of events with billion-dollar price tags such as climate change. Programs like BRIC really help us avoid these ballooning disaster costs, like we've seen. So all of the money that they cut here for the infrastructure, $882 million of funding from the infrastructure was going infrastructure into preventing damage from natural disasters. I don't like what would be an example of that? Like raising houses in communities that are more susceptible to floods. That would be an example of funding that maybe you do like a tax break on that if you're getting a house elevation or some type of like subsidized from the government, taking all of that away. Rural communities are hit particularly hard by the lost funds. Many small rural communities applied for federal funding because they have no other option. For many, federal funding is the only source large enough to update the aging infrastructure that's vulnerable to increasingly intense disasters. Moving residents to higher ground and upgrading the sewage plant costs tens of millions of dollars. Yeah, exactly. You know, not everyone is wealthy. The local government collects only about $1 million in property tax revenue each year. With the money promised, Bonenberger was making concrete plans to move residents out of the flood zone and start fixing the wastewater plant. Now with the grants canceled, the town is back to square one. Not only are all of those residents now fucked if they made housing moving plans, like permanent plans, but now every contractor that was going to start working on fixing that water place plant and is going to start working on fixing those houses, and all of the little workers that would have been contributing to that are all out of a job. FEMA is excited about BRIC's potential to help communities proactively reduce their vulnerability to natural hazard events and in turn make the nation more resilient. Read a FEMA statement when Trump announced the program in 2020. It's literally a Trump administration started program. Jesus Christ. Oh my gosh. Years of planning. Yeah, this is what a cuck. What an actual cuck. You have real people that are in your state that voted for you to represent them because they bought into whatever bullshit you sold them, and you're just putting on a show. You're putting on a show in front of the camera to show them, oh look, I'm asking for aid for you. Oh look, they said that they would give you aid, but look at the video, look at the hearing. They said that they would give you aid. Okay? Knowing damn well that this administration is literally doing everything in their power to cut all whatever, not everything. I need to stop hyperbolizing. This administration is not prioritizing the things that need to be prioritized to help protect as many constituents from natural disasters as possible.
It is how important that is, because as I toured these streets and walked and talked to the residents, what I heard over and over is many of these folks don't have insurance.
Yeah.
You know, many of these folks, they either got their homes from a family member or they bought them from a family member, so they don't have a mortgage on the property, and therefore they don't have homeowner's insurance. So as you know, having been a governor, in many instances, FEMA assistance is going to be the only assistance that they're going to get. And I just had a hearing in this committee, in our subcommittee, Senator Kim and I last week, where we talked to major insurance companies who routinely scam people by refusing to pay out the full policy awards that they are due. So I know we're going to be fighting that in Missouri. We've got to have the federal government where there's individual assistance that people qualify for. We've got to have people be able to get that. Otherwise, we're never going to be able to rebuild these neighborhoods. Yeah. So you just committed, I think, to expediting that. I appreciate that. Thank you for your help in all of this. And then the last thing we'll say is can you commit also to making sure that the FEMA communication with the state and with individuals is open, is clear, is transparent? You referenced the fact that FEMA is notorious for giving bad information, for slow walking residents, for confusing intake forms that nobody knows how to fill out, for not getting back to people. Can you commit to, as we deal with this disaster in St. Louis and others around the state, that under your leadership, FEMA is going to act with expedition, they are going to be clear in their communications, and they're going to follow up and give people the awards that they need if they qualify for it?
Yeah, that's been the biggest challenge of FEMA in the past. It's just a delayed response. People are counting on the assistance and it never comes through. And the paperwork is too complicated for an individual many times to complete on their own. They need help and assistance. So that's part of the reforms that the FEMA Review Council will be undertaking. And we've got people that are frontline responders across the country that are serving on that council. And we'll take your insight as well. But we'll continue to expedite what we can with the framework we have in front of us, but do better diligence than the last administration on how we take care of people.
Fantastic. Everything you said today is going to be very, very welcome news in St. Louis and the rest of Missouri this morning. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your service. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
My dick suckers are gonna be so happy to hear you say that. Did I hear that right? Was that an accurate translation? Okay. I'm reading through chat right now. There's so many. Jesus Christ. Okay. Ozzy, keep on spamming that Free Palestine flag, okay? I'm really sorry that anything else should be giving space and leaving space for the genocide that's going on.
Senator Fetterman.
Thank you. Secretary, hi, hello. As you may know, I'm from Pennsylvania, and I occupy perhaps a unique...
This guy's still in Congress? I thought that he got... I thought he was having like a mental health event. Like what?
Position. I've been very, very, very pro-immigration, but I early identified the serious problem about the border, the security. And I've said this publicly, I'll say it now, that my party failed to secure our border, and we deserve to pay a political price for that. And I've been trying to find a way forward to move forward on those things. I voted for you, not because you and I agree on a lot of political things and we're in different parties, but you're the secretary and I'm a member of this committee, so I believe we have to find a way to work forward together. And I'm not here for fireworks or to try to create...
Oh my god, that doesn't make any sense. Like... He used this excuse when he was thinking about voting for Pete Hegseth, and I was like, oh, well, it looks really bad if, like, there's not a single Democrat that votes for the Secretary of Defense. No, it doesn't. The Secretary of Defense didn't meet with a single Democrat before his confirmation hearing. Like, this administration is not friendly to the Democrats. Why are you even doing that? The mental health event that I'm referring to, when did this come out? There was like an op-ed. Hello? What just happened? There was an op-ed that came out in beginning of May. I don't think it was an op-ed. Investigative piece. Profile. That's what it's called. Profile. By New York Magazine. There you go. John Fetterman insists he's in good health, but staffers past and present say they no longer recognize the man they once knew. It's basically, dude, it's like insanely long. I didn't read through the whole thing, but it's really sad. It's like he seems like really depressed. He drives really erratically, is like really paranoid about like everything that's going on, is like really like over putting too much pressure on himself. And then that in combination with the fact that he had a stroke and was treated for depression after the fact, I don't know, it's like a lot. It's definitely like a lot. Thank you, Fire Dragon, for the $13. Is that Canadian dollars?
Like something to be clipped on TV. I'm honestly coming, asking for your help about a situation here. So now, I have a constituent. His name's Ramin, and he's an Afghani who served alongside our service members there in the war. He is a resident of Philadelphia. Now, he's a surgeon, and he saved American lives. And now he is waiting to be approved like a green card. And now he helped evacuate our forces through an airlift. Now, and his two brothers, and of course we can't name them due to the...
Wait, I want to clarify. Oh, shit, my camera died. Damn it. I'm so large. Okay, anyways, fuck, what was I saying? I forgot what I was saying. Oh, wait, I want to clarify. I don't think he's having a mental health event because he is like a Republican now. I don't even think that he's like that super. Is he even like that Republican now? I feel like he went to Mar-a-Lago. He was like a cuck for that. But I don't think I've heard him say anything like too far gone.
Their concerns, but they're trapped in Pakistan, and the risk for removal for Afghanistan, and they face torture and death because of their commitment for a free and democratic Afghanistan. They've saved American lives, and they have defended, our forces in there. And now here, that's part of my concern right now. And if looking for help, honestly, and that's one of the reasons why I voted for you, because we want to try and find a way, because not all immigration is just about securing our border, we know, but it's about helping people that deserve to come to our nation after serving in such an amazing, great risk, or there's now. So there was the president's executive order suspending refugee resettlement now, but again, they kind of got caught up in the middle of that. And I'm not here looking for the theater. I'm just here to come because I believe they deserve to be here for the sacrifices and what they put at risk. And I'm asking if we're able to get some kind of working with my office, please, to find a way to bring these Afghani heroes that saved American lives during that war, because things may got caught up in these executive orders. So that's really all I'm asking today.
Yeah, Senator, we will certainly work with your office on those specific cases. We have 8,000 individuals that have been granted asylum since President Trump has been in office, looking at cases much like you have. And these individuals that are here that may have been on a different program like TPS that is no longer going to be in place in a couple of months, we have the opportunity to work with them to get them qualified. Many of the concerns with some of these countries, when you're talking about interacting with them and giving them status and green cards here in the United States, is the ability to vet them. And it sounds like the individuals that have been thoroughly vetted in partnership with the United States. And so that is something that...
What are his recent pro-Israel takes? Is he like super far?
We'll look at and we'll certainly work with you on recognizing their service to our country.
Yeah, I would be profoundly grateful if my office can work with your team, and perhaps even with state as well too. So that's all this is about too. Yep. It's a political truth that we have to find a way to work together, because there are truth, and it is not owned by one side or the other. So I look forward to finding a solution here. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Moreno.
Secretary Noem, thank you for being here. Thank you for your work. I just want to reiterate for the record, 93% drop in border encounters. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
And are you aware that during the Biden-Harris administration, we had 4,000 aliens that died along the journey to come to America?
I wasn't aware of that specific number, but it doesn't surprise me.
Because basically we had
a dangerous trip.
It's a dangerous trip. Yep. The Darien Gap, which is right near where I was born in Colombia, went from being a supposedly uncrossable border to hundreds of thousands of people making that journey. Who benefited from our open borders policy under Biden?
Oh, I would say Joe Biden certainly did.
And the drug cartels that made tens of billions of dollars?
Yep.
And who was the victim? Certainly American citizens.
American citizens, but those who chose to come to our country at that time, believing that they could come without any consequences.
And obviously the drug cartels are drug cartels that became human traffickers at scale and used that human trafficking as a disguise to allow illegal fentanyl to come into our country. And what's been the ramifications of that? What have you seen firsthand when you go to the border? What do the agents tell you about the fentanyl that's coming across the border?
Well, it's devastating. Luckily, we have the ability now to enforce our laws with this president, and fentanyl traffic has been down 54% since he's been in office because of that. But unfortunately, what's happening is these cartels, foreign terrorist organizations, are now moving to our maritime borders. They're moving and getting much more sophisticated, and so we need to adapt and have the resources to be able to interdict them before they come in and kill off our next generation of Americans.
So it's not hyperbole to say that tens of thousands of Americans have not been killed with fentanyl because of that.
Correct, absolutely.
And it's just important to just reflect, not for political reasons, but just for moral reasons, to say that what happened over the last 4 years is despicable. We should never have allowed that to happen. There was no outcry about the situation. administration, and yet it was allowed to happen. Now it's a lot easier to enter America than it is to be deported from America. Can you talk about that for a minute?
Well, that is true. When you have a president in the White House that is openly saying our laws won't be enforced and facilitating this invasion that happened over our southern border, we had...
John Fetterman's move to the right on Israel. Many Democrats saw John Fetterman as a progressive beacon, a Rust Belt Bernie Sanders, who with his shaved head, his hoodie, and the zip code of Braddock, Pennsylvania tattooed on his arm, could rally working class white voters to the Democratic Party. But Fetterman is veering away from the left of his party, even centrists like Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, with one issue: Israel's war on Gaza. He seems to justify the civilian death toll Israel has inflicted on Gaza. When you have that kind of evil, that kind of a movement that came out of a society, whether it was Nazi Germany, Imperial Japan, or the Confederacy here in the South, that kind of movement has to be destroyed. That's why Atlanta had to burn. Alright, that's a little intense. I mean, I don't... Okay. Let me keep reading. Oh, that's it. That's the entire... John Fetterman had $1 for every time he's been asked a question since he's collecting multiples of the 150 annual salary he once shares Mayor, hi, I'm Jewish. I want to thank you for sending Israel through this. What I don't understand is why do you have some kind of Jewish roots? I'm a different kind of Democrat, not your average politician, despite the external decisions. In turn, he's been vilified by progressives, furious at his betrayal and left isolated with his party. He couldn't even attend last month's DNC. Oh. Alright, that's fucked. Chased the senator for the interview for most of the year. John Fetterman is a liberal mugged by the vicious reality of party's activist left. He's emerged as a convert to old-fashioned democratic centrism, inviting comparisons to Senate legends such as Harry Scoop Jackson. October 7th. Oh my god. Okay, what does this say about his stances? Two Pittsburghers, Fetterman's answer fits a recognizable type. He's a yinzer. It's a local term that indicates a no-nonsense, unpretentious. It's not about being fancy. Okay. Center court. Oh my gosh. This is so long. I support Israel. Okay, there we go. I support Israel until they're able to neutralize Hamas. How can you ever hope to rebuild Gaza or bring any kind of peace as long as Hamas isn't eliminated? It required billions of dollars to rebuild Gaza. Can you run that through Hamas and ensure they don't use that you don't use that to purchase weapons or build more kinds of tunnels? I mean, that seems pretty reasonable, no? I mean, you can argue it, but I don't think that's like a super egregious. I think I would agree with that. Maybe. Whatever.
Millions of people come. And not just people looking for new opportunities in the American dream. You had people coming that were criminals, murderers, rapists, traffickers, terrorists. And now to remove them is much more complicated, difficult, and expensive. For us to deport someone, that we have to go out and find that individual, arrest and detain them and remove them from the country, it costs upwards to $17,000 if there isn't, more delays than the normal process. That's why we're encouraging people to self-deport. If you are here illegally, we recognize that you may have been here for a period of time, but if you want to leave and have the chance to come back someday, leave on your own. We will facilitate that. We'll buy you a plane ticket. When you land, we will give you $1,000 that you can get started with and provide for your family. That cost of self-deportation is $4,500. So much, much more cheaper for the American taxpayer in how we make sure that we really are following our laws and that the people here in this country, the American citizens, are treated with the respect that they're due by coming here through the legal process and being a part of our future.
Yeah, I think it's just important, and I hope my colleagues, especially on the other side of the aisle, I look at Senator Gallego, whose family came here from another country, his mom from Colombia, his dad from Mexico.
that we honor and respect those of us like myself, my 5 brothers, my sister, my mom and dad, that follow the legal process, which by the way is hard. It's a privilege to come to America. It's not easy. You have to go through a process. But over the last 4 years, what we did is we made it so that if you hired a drug cartel, brought you to the border, and then raised your hand when you got to the Border Patrol and said asylum or asilo, that got you a free ticket into the country, free housing, free healthcare, free education to the detriment of Americans. I think that should be something.
Okay, so fix the asylum system, but no one wants to talk about that. No one wants to actually fix the immigration problem because immigrants are so fucking easy to exploit. I have a video.
You cannot logically explain.
Yay. This is so long. I record for probably like twice the length that my videos end up being, so keep that in mind. I literally spend so much fucking time rambling and doing I don't even know what in the middle of my videos. Alright. I'm clocking out, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Actually, no, today was such a lazy stream. I'm so sorry. Today was actually such a lazy stream. So sorry. We'll be back tomorrow. Probably tomorrow morning, if I'm being honest. Maybe we'll do a bright and early stream. We'll see. Hope you guys all have a phenomenal night. Enjoy your Tuesday. Get turned on a Tuesday. Bye. Love you.